so T-Bone, when I was talking to him, he said the big question for him in verse 2 is, what kind of a chutzpah, what kind of a gall do these foreigners have? They come to Israel and they say to as far as they know, the king of Israel, we heard your replacement was born.
and listen, Nehemia.
Wow.
Not just that they said that. Listen, Herod's already, I mean, this is why you got to understand Herod. You don't bring up any other possibility of a king.
Right.
Not with him. So
Herod's the guy who murdered his own son. He murdered, I think it was his wife or his mother-in-law. Yeah. He murdered so many people just to prevent that. Yeah, it was one of his wives who was a Hasmonean. He killed all these people to prevent them from taking over his rule. Yeah. People who had more legitimacy than him. So the idea of a king who's from the line of Judah, that of course, and this is an important another question here. Okay, let's read verses 2 and 3 here. They say, where is the king of the Jews who is born? Ra'inu svivo, or kochavo b'mizrach. We saw his surroundings, or we saw his star in the east, depending how you read it. U'matanot chashuvot ba'u lishtachavot lo. And they came with important gifts to bow down to him. V'shama hordus hamelech. And Herod the king heard, vayibahel, and he was dismayed. And the word there implies quickness. He's like, oh, this is really bad. V'chol yoshvei Yerushalayim imo, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him. Now, I was reading different commentaries to see how they understood this, whole passage. And one of the Christian commentaries explained that what's going on here is that this is essentially a prefiguration. This is anticipating what will happen in the future, which is that the Gentiles will accept Jesus, but the Jews will reject him. That is how some Christians understand this. And I wonder if that's why Rabbi Soloveitchik brought in the whole issue of Christians and Jews who look at this, who look at the life of Yeshua and say to each other, we have a gripe with each other. In other words, they take verse 3 to be, hey, we're really upset that Yeshua is born. We before we even met him, we reject him as our king. That is the way many Christians read verse 3.
And Nehemia, I have to, it won't be often that I'll disagree with you. But I'll disagree with you on that. That if you understand who Herod is, and what I understand.
Oh, if you understand who Herod is, sure.
No, I'm saying, well, okay. So then in Hebrew Matthew, against the stuff we're talking about is the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew also.
Yes.
It says of those who dwelt with him. So when I'm thinking, well, who dwelt with Herod? So there's the power base that's with Herod to make sure that lines. I mean, who knows? It isn't all of Jerusalem. Maybe it's just the people that are with Herod that's upset.
Let's say it's all Jerusalem.
I
right?
don't think it's all of Jerusalem.
Let's say it is. Why would they be dismayed? I understand why Herod's dismayed.
Right.
He's dismayed because he's going to be replaced as king, as he sees it. Why would? And by the way, everyone's still thinking here of a flesh and blood ruler on earth. Why is it that the people of Jerusalem would be dismayed? So here again, history, language, and context. We talked how around the year 40 to 37 BCE, the Jews revolted against the Romans with the help of the Parthians. And what was the Roman response? They sent Herod with the military to crush the revolt. Thousands of Jews were killed, tens of thousands. Much later, about 30 years later, there is a man named Simon of Perea. He is a slave of Herod, and he leads a Jewish revolt. Josephus describes this in War 2, 57 to 59, and Antiquities 17, 273 to 277. I want to read just quickly about this. There was also Simon, Josephus tells us, who had been a slave of Herod the king. This man was so bold to put a crown on his head, while a certain number of the people stood by. In other words, this man, who is Simon of Perea, is claiming to be the king of Israel and rebelling against Herod. And I guarantee you one of his arguments was, Herod ain't even one of us. He's an Idumean, and I am a true Israelite. So you have this guy, Simon of Perea, who goes, and it says he also set fire to many other of the king's houses in several places of the country and utterly destroyed them. He's burning down things and destroying cities. So when they have somebody who claims to be the Messiah, there's always something that follows. And that is the Messiah fails and there's horrible persecution. Simon of Perea is one of them. Another is called Judah of Gamla, or in the book of Acts, he's called Judas the Galilean, right? He's mentioned by Gamaliel when Paul is on trial. Josephus talks about him at length. He rose up around this time as well, and he led a rebellion against the Romans, and it led to horrible persecution. Jews were killed in the tens of thousands because of this revolt. You know, when the Romans come to put down the revolt, they have no way of knowing who supported this messianic claimant and who didn't. They just kill everybody in sight who they get their hands on, and let the crosses sort it out. Meaning they literally will put tens of thousands of people on crosses and kill them and murder them in just horrific ways. The Romans did. So the point is, the Jews of Jerusalem have a very good reason to be dismayed. They hear these foreigners come and say, we heard that your king is born and there's something miraculous about it. Right? They see a star. So here's an important point. Why are they upset? Because when Herod hears he's going to lose his kingdom, the inhabitants of Jerusalem hear, oh no, not another Simon of Perea, not another Judas the Galilean. This is going to lead to more Roman persecution. That's what they're thinking. It's not that the Messiah has come and they reject him before they even met him. What they're thinking is, another one of these. We're going to get persecuted again.
That's certainly one possibility. I think there may have been people that were dwelling with Herod that was like, hey, we're in the power base. It's our party that's running the show here. We don't want that to change. And maybe the other people are like, look, this feels biblical. This feels like it's within the knock. I mean, there's another group of people that probably extremely excited. I mean, those folks came all the way from the east based on something that is in the sky. I mean, I don't know. I saw it a little bit different. But I mean, what I love about this is, and I especially am excited that we can go further into this because, I mean, Nehemia, I don't even know.
Wait, so you bring up a really good point. Yeah. So the Hebrew version of Matthew has the word inhabitants of Jerusalem with him. Right. We could also, so there's two ways to translate this. All those who are dwellers of Jerusalem with him, all those who are dwellers of Jerusalem with him. Meaning, what's the emphasis here? They're dwelling with him or they're dwelling in Jerusalem? The Greek doesn't have the word dwellers, and so it's just all of Jerusalem with him.
And that's what my point. I know.
So you're saying it's the allies of Herod who are upset.
It's the people who are dwelling. I'm just reading the Hebrew Gospel, Matthew. It's dwelling with him. With who? With Herod. That's his power base. Of course, they're not happy. Right. What about the rest of the people? I'm gonna tell you something. Let me ask you this simple question. This is a transitional question. If you were in the first century and you heard that a star appeared, people came, and there's some understanding of this king being born. Am I wrong in thinking that you are looking still in the first century for Messiah, for who Messiah is?
So this is the point. They were so looking fervently for the Messiah in the first century that every few years there was someone who made the claim, I'm the Messiah, and the Jews were persecuted as a result. There's the story in Acts where Paul is arrested, and the Roman commander, he's like, oh, you're that Egyptian guy, right? You're that Egyptian, right? So there's so many of these messianic claimants. Right. The Romans can't even keep track of them all. And so you hear this, you're like, so there's two things you could think. Finally, the true Messiah is born, right? How do we know? There are these people who have come from, even the Gentiles acknowledge him, right? That could be one way of looking at it. That certainly seems to be what Matthew is getting at, right? From my perspective, it seems that way. The other way of looking at it is, oh no, not another one of these, right? And then Gamaliel had a third approach. He's like, let's wait and see, right? I'm not going to be upset about this. We'll see if this works. These things have a way of sorting themselves out, right? Right. We'll find out in a couple generations if he was the true Messiah. Right? That's the Gamaliel approach. So I guess the different Jews could have a different approach to this.